So here I have my types of membrane transport. Let's go ahead and go through the types together. So I can either have a passive transport type or an active transport type. Passive is telling me that no energy or no ATP is involved in that type of transport across the plasma membrane of a cell. In active transport, you are telling me that energy or ATP is, required. Okay, so we have different types of passive transport. We can have something called diffusion. You might see this as simple diffusion. And basically what's happening is those molecules have a gradient associated with them. I can see on the left-hand side of this example, this is telling me outside the cell. Since it's a blue environment, this is telling me inside the cell, that kind of yellow cytoplasm-like environment. And so the outside of the cell has a high concentration of molecules. I can see that there's a lot more of molecules on the outside of the cell than on the inside of the cell. That's called a low concentration. And so this is called a concentration gradient. There's a difference across the plasma membrane. We can see that in simple diffusion, there's movement with the concentration gradient. It goes from high to low. That's called going with the concentration gradient. Okay, there's no energy required. Simple diffusion is going with the concentration gradient. In facilitated diffusion, I'm going to go ahead and write this in a different color. In facilitated diffusion, I also see a high concentration. I'm going to write high concentration on the outside, and I see a low concentration with those triangle molecules. So that's similar to diffusion, and there's an overall net movement from high to low that's going with, once again, the concentration gradient. But the difference, there is a difference, is that I see this purple guy right here. I'm coloring him in yellow. This purple guy right here that's embedded in the phospholipid bilayer, that's a protein. You write that over here, a protein. Some of them are enzymes. It depends on the transport molecule, the molecule that's being transported, sorry. And so in facilitated diffusion, really the only difference between simple diffusion is that a protein is involved in order to transport that molecule. Maybe that molecule has a specific polar nature associated with it that doesn't really like the plasma membrane. Maybe that molecule is too big to just simply diffuse through that phospholipid bilayer. There are many reasons why. No energy is required. It's still a type of passive transport, but a protein is involved. Let's look at active transport now. I'm going to write a different color. And in active transport, if I look at outside of the cell, this is a low concentration compared to the inside of the cell, which is a high concentration in this example. And it looks like the movement is going from low to high in this example based on that arrow. This is going against the concentration gradient. Really, molecules want to behave where they go from high to low. That's pretty easy for them to do. No energy required to go with the concentration gradient. Think of perfume diffusing through a room. You spray it in one area, it's just going to naturally diffuse through the area of the room itself. Well, molecules can go against their concentration gradient. That's okay, but ATP is required in order to achieve that. Energy is required. This is why this is a type of active transport. In addition, a protein will also be involved. I'm coloring in that guy here, in order to achieve that process.